This one is called The Pants. Take 8.
It's working.
It's working.
This is another episode of
Funniest Thing
with Darrell and Ed. It's a follow-up. This one's titled, When is the crate of bourbon gonna come floating by?
That's right.
When's the crate of bourbon float by?
That's right. This is a follow-up to yesterday's show, which was called Forgive and Grow Rich.
That's right. That was our show on unity.fm.
That's right. Or you can find our podcast on Funniest Thing, on iTunes, excuse me. It's called Funniest Thing with Darrell and Ed.
Yep.
We do it every week on Unity Online Radio.
Right. And if you subscribe to our iTunes versions of our radio show, you'll also get these YouTube episodes as audio podcasts as well.
Right. And please make comments on iTunes or YouTube so that whatever it gets more people's eyes on the prize, as Darrell used to call it in the industry.
Well, the good news is that we don't have to continue to punish ourselves for past mistakes, even though I sometimes believe that if I'm not beating myself up for some wrong that that's real or fancied in my head, if I'm not punishing myself, then I'm not learning from it. And actually the opposite is true.
Yeah, yesterday's show is all about how prosperity is our natural state of being, and when we're not judging ourselves or anyone else, when we're done beating ourselves up and everyone else, the prosperity just flows. And Darrell gave the example of floating down the river, and his example of prosperity was all this good stuff just starts to flow into your experience. In his case, it was a crate of bourbon that floated by on the show. So we called this show episode, When Does the Bourbon Float By?
And it floats by once we let ourselves off the hook. And that doesn't mean we're not learning from our mistakes.
Oh, yes.
See, the big mistake, and we're going to read this from Science of Mind, the definition of sin, the big mistake is to believe, like I have believed for so long, that if I'm not punishing myself for my past wrong, then I'm not going to learn my lesson. Or worse, I better not be too happy, or those people who I feel that I've harmed in the past, who I haven't let myself off the hook about, are gonna be very upset with me, because how dare I be happy now? And actually that's all crap. That the point is, once I've made my amends and I've done the best I could to learn from the mistake, then that means it's time to move on and continue with God's will, God's mission, and continue now to joyously move forward, encourage others, help others learn from the mistakes I have made, and be a useful tool for God.
Yes, and you when you were talking, it occurred to me, one of the questions to ask is, well, what is the lesson? What really is the lesson? The whole lesson of life is to learn to be loving, and that the whole universe functions from a loving place, never holds anything against us or anyone else. So a lot of times, did I learn my lesson? A lot of times we think the lesson is, I'm a bad person, I should never do that again. That is not the lesson.
No.
The lesson is, we are here to be loving.
Yes.
We are here to be prosperous. We're here to be joyful. We're here to share what we have with everyone else.
I got excited.
Oh, dude, hit it up.
Because a lot of the times with Ed and I, we always carry a little book so you can write down positive things that pop into your head.
Yeah, I was going to say, I personally use my notepad on my iPhone a lot. I don't do a lot of the drawings like Darrell's always drawing, I use my notepad on my iPhone, which is another great way to do it.
Yeah, whatever works. And this one I wrote guilt relief, and I wrote this because I heard someone say it, and what it says is, don't beat yourself up, young man. Just make a different decision.
Yes.
Meaning, if I'm beating myself up, that means I'm already aware of the mistake I made.
Yes.
So now let's move forward.
Right.
And where can we go from here in a positive direction?
Right. Yes. And a lot of people at that point, it's just hitting me so hard after listening to you. A lot of people at that point think the better decision is the more serious, more like my mom and dad would make, or more like, but no, it's the more joyous, loving decision. How do I start to move at least in the direction of being more? Because,
no, you made it so clear. I'm so glad you shared that we're here. Even Florence Scovel Shinn says that our life here is our every man, every woman here, what's the point of life? It's our initiation in love.
Yes.
So if I make a mistake that goes against love, it feels uncomfortable.
That's right.
Well, now let me get back into the groove of love. And before we read sin, this is why a lot of us, including Ed and I, will think, I gotta work hard, how do I make this happen?
Right.
How am I gonna make this? Why do we believe that everything's so hard?
Yes.
And it dawned on me, and if you really want to hear a lot about this in depth, listen to our episode Forgive and Grow Rich on iTunes or at unity.fm. But it really dawned on me, why do I feel I gotta work so hard I can't just have things come naturally to me? And it's because somewhere in my mind, I'm not forgiving myself for past mistakes, so therefore I think, well, I can't just have things come to me. I don't deserve it.
Or it could just be somewhere along the line there was a definition within us, within me, that said, I'm not worthy. So if you're watching this and listening, because I know myself listening and watching this might say, oh, that, like, yeah, I hear what they're saying, but no, that really couldn't clear up how bad I am. But I'm telling you, whatever that, like he's saying, the judgment or the belief that it doesn't work for you, that is a lie.
Yeah, because what happens is, then I fool myself into thinking, well, if I'm no good for whatever thing, wherever I got that thing, then I'm different, then I'm separate.
Yeah.
Well, then, if I'm no good, then I really got to work hard to earn everything I get.
Yeah.
Because it can't just come naturally for me. And that's horse crap.
Yeah, and that can also lead to, well, I'm just going to hole up and separate myself from life because what's the use? So I can't fight that hard, I'm not good enough, whatever. So it's like either you're going to push hard and win, or you're going to, curl up in a ball somewhere and hide. And you can still even be going through your daily life, but you're energetically shut down.
That's the key. The key is not about working harder to overcome.
Yeah.
Or working harder to make this work. The key is use that energy to go back and let myself off the hook.
Yes.
Instead of, how can I work harder? Look at that perception of, wait a minute, I'm beating myself up.
Yes.
I'm here to love.
Yes.
And then choose to believe, what can I do going forward that's loving?
Yes.
It could be smiling at someone. It could be making someone who looks like they don't know anyone in the room, hey, my name's Darrell.
Yes.
Like, let me get back into what is our point here? It's to encourage and love others.
And it comes from inside you. So if it, like for me in the past, it was, like I said, it's not about figuring out how am I going to act more in accord with what other people think I should be. It's really about how do I unlock more of my joy, because that's telling me that I'm in tune with God. Like even this morning, I had a lot of crap going through my head, and that's it hasn't been uncommon for me in the past. And a lot of times I'll doubt, like with my job for the school district, if I'm doing a good enough job, am I doing it, blah blah blah. But if I had given into that this morning and believed that, I would have missed an opportunity where I got a text message from a friend of mine in the district, like an administrator who was in a meeting with one of the children that I work with in lunch group.
Which could be scary. Oh no, now what do I got to do? What's going on?
Yeah, and she said, what is that thing you say to her when she talks in that funny voice to get her back on track or whatever, right? And I was like, oh God, I don't know what that means. But I was coming to meet Darrell for coffee, and I was driving right by that school, and I had a hunch, let me just go by the school. And I stepped out boldly. I even told Darrell, I'm going to stop by this school, which for me was like, okay, I'm listening to my hunch. I'm not going to just rush over.
Well, and before you walked in, we were both deciding, oh yeah, this is going to be fun and easy. You weren't thinking, oh, I got to go in here.
Right. Yeah, and there was a lot of funniest things. I had met this parent, actually Darrell and I had met her because she lives in Darrell's neighborhood, and so I felt really good.
Wait, she gave us plastic hefty bags to squeeze into when
we
it
were
was
trapped
raining.
under a tree in some hard rain, at least for California standards. And so anyway, I texted my friend. I said, I'm already here. You want me to stop by? And then I ended up finding the room where they were. I stood outside. She came out and said, oh, that would be great. Would you be willing to come in? I went in there, and earlier, like, I had been doing my best to forgive myself, let go of the crap that was going through my head, and I'm sure glad I did, because I sat down, and in the presence of these parents, I was able to just let the love I have for that kid come out and say, you know, what I do when the kid talks in a funny voice is I tell them, that's awesome. I talk in funny voices too. You're a creative person, just like me.
Just like me.
Yeah, just like me. And then just like us.
We do that all the time.
Yeah, exactly. And then I was able to explain. From there, I just say, all right, now let's just talk in a regular voice and answer this question. And it was awesome because I hadn't given into all the...
What should I say?
Yeah, what should I say? And I didn't get derailed earlier when my mind was telling me, you haven't done a good enough job, you know? Because that's what I was thinking about. These BS ideas we have about ourselves and how bad we've done or blah, blah, blah. All it does is keep us out of the good that never stops coming our way.
It keeps the bourbon from floating by.
I know. We want to get the bourbon when it floats by.
This is great. I know we're going long, but I got to say this. This morning I woke up and my head was relentless. Now, yesterday we just did a show on Forgive and Grow Rich, and we were so high with the idea of forgiveness and how good that feels.
Yes.
I mean, it was awesome. But usually what happens when we have a big growth spurt, the next day, you may have a little bit of a spiritual hangover like I did. And what it means is I started thinking, wait a minute, because my mind, my subconscious stretched so big. Yeah, forgiveness really is the right.
Yeah.
This is how we live. This is God's will.
Right.
So then what happens? Then the little scrapings of pus that are in my subconscious go, wait a minute, but you did something reprehensible a year ago.
Yes.
And even though you made amends and you did what you could to correct the situation, that was awful. You're
Right.
awful. I don't know if you deserve to be talking about forgiveness. And I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
And we're going to read this definition of forgiveness. And I just had to remind myself, wait a minute. I've done everything I could in that situation to repair it.
Yeah.
I made amends. And because I started thinking, well, you're not allowed to be happy on Facebook and do this show with Ed anymore.
Yes.
Because you're just terrible.
Right.
Who are you? And if you're not being miserable now, people are going to see this that may or may not. I mean, I'm making stuff up in my head thinking about how harmed others are or not
Right.
harmed. I'm making it up to be so god awful
Right.
that if they see this, then they're going to go, he doesn't, you know, he's not really suffering like he
Penitent.
should.
He's not
Yeah,
penitent.
it's all garbage. And this reading really says a lot. And I'm going to follow it up with something from another book from Ernest Holmes.
Yes, because we really want you to know if you're beating yourself up, you're just missing out on the party that God has for you. If I had beat myself up and listened to myself about not being a good enough teacher, blah, 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 I would have missed out on that opportunity to bless those family and bless myself, bless the district, because everyone was so, that was the thing I was going to say is, that family was thanking me that I'm in the kid's life. They love the articles I write in the newspaper. My friend and the administrator from the district texted me to thank me. And it was all just by me doing something that was very easy and joyful for me to do.
And we forget all that stuff
Yeah.
when we're beating ourselves up. And the other thing to remember that may help you, that helps me, is to remind myself, wait, these awful thoughts that are coming up and out to be put in the light.
Yeah.
To be let go of. That's why they're coming up. They're thoughts that make me feel bad about myself and others, and it means they're coming up to be put out.
Yeah, that's the glory of God. I've never even said that before in my life, but there's, like in the Bible, Darrell and I talk about, they're talking about joy, glory. The glory is, oh my God.
It's good news.
Yeah, it's good news. None of the stuff I was believing about myself was true. I'm alive, like Ebenezer the morning after.
Yeah, that's what Jesus was saying. He wasn't saying, I have more things you boys should take serious. No, he says, dude, I got some good news, man. It's not about suffering.
It wasn't the good news. It was, this is good news.
Yeah, it wasn't the gospel.
Yeah, it was
good news.
So anyway,
Speaking of good news,
you can't really see this book, which book it is, but this is The Science of Mind by Ernest Holmes. Actually, Dr. Elizabeth Marshall gave me this copy, so I love it. And the covers have fallen off. If you want to read this book or any of the other books you hear about on this show or any other show we do, go to www.goodreads.com/Darrell and Ed. Okay, so this comes from the Glossary of Science of Mind, which is uplifting. And this glossary is the best thing ever.
keep it simple.
The definition of sin says, we have tried to show that there is no sin but a mistake, and no punishment but a consequence. The law of cause and effect. Sin is merely missing the mark. God does not punish sin. As we correct our mistakes, we forgive our sins.
And a Unity minister back in 1986 said something that stuck with me. That's a great way to look at the word sin. Self-imposed nonsense.
Yes.
You know, once you get past recognizing the mistake and you continue to punish yourself because you sinned, that's self-imposed nonsense.
Right, and those thoughts about yourself are still off the mark.
Yes.
So you're still, in a way, sinning by carrying it and believing it to be real. That's just as sinful. That's probably those same thoughts were probably the ones that led you to do the thing in the first place.
Like just that strong coffee I just burped up.
All right,
And the other reading is from Creative Mind and Success from
Yes.
Ernest Holmes. And funniest thing, I shut the book to read that.
Oh, show them the bookmark.
Oh, funniest thing, I had that happen to be the bookmark.
Watch yourself change.
And it's
Forgive yourself, be loving,
Oh.
say wonderful things to yourself, and then watch yourself change, because it happens naturally, like Darrell's creative bourbon floating by.
And I just found the reading, and just so you know, give credit where credit was due, this happens to be a Weight Watchers bookmark.
And it happened to be the bookmark that was in his book.
Yeah, funniest thing. And here it is. It's from What Will We Attract? And it's the last paragraph on page 17.
What's the name of the book again?
Creative Mind and Success. It's Ernest Holmes' very first book.
It's Dr. Elizabeth Marshall's favorite of his books.
Yeah,
she said.
I believe it was written in 1912. It's awesome. 1912.
That's amazing.
1919, sorry.
1919.
And here it is. See only what you wish to experience and look at nothing else. No matter how many times the old thought returns, destroy it by knowing that it has no power over you.
Yes.
Look it squarely in the face and tell it to go. It does not belong to you, and you must know and stick to it that you are now free.
That's right. And part of you, if you're sitting there beating yourself up, I guarantee there's somewhere inside you where you're pissed off about it too. You're frustrated. You don't want to be feeling that way. You take that energy. You should be pissed off because you're telling yourself stuff that's crap.
Yes.
And then you take it, you go for a walk, you talk to Fazaro, you talk to whoever you can talk to, you get that energy moving, you get this troops, give yourself new marching orders. It's time to be joyful and start moving in the right direction.
Yes.
That's when the bourbon floats by.
That's right. So kick yourself up the stairs, not down the stairs.
That's right, that's right. So, anything else we want to say in closing here?
Yeah, thanks for being a part of Funniest Thing with Darrell and Ed.
Find us on Facebook, like our page. We always put up the episodes, we put up daily fun pictures and quotes, and we actually attribute our quotes to where we got them from.
That's
if it's from
right.
Ernest Holmes or Emmett Fox. We actually write their name.
Yeah,
in
we
there.
don't just brand them Darrell and Ed.
Right.
We let you know who said the quote.
Yeah, we don't change.
We changed 30% of the quote, so now we can put our own name on it.
No. It's more fun to give the credit.
Give the credit where credit is due, right?
Yep.
So, we give it all to God.
And Darrell and
Darrell and
Darrell
we
and
give it all to God and Darrell and.
No, Darrell and Ed love you.
Yes, we do.
Thank you for listening to The Funniest Thing with Darrell and Ed. Listen in every Wednesday at 5 p.m. Central as these unlikely saints share more real-life stories of how surrendering to divine order always leads to better-than-expected outcomes. This program has been made possible by God through automated monthly transfers from Darrell and Ed's credit cards.